All right. Thanks everyone for joining this month's masterclass. We have Tim Davidson. If you don't know Tim, he is a good friend of mine in kind of, fruit cutting extraordinaire on video. But for anyone that doesn't follow Tim on LinkedIn, as well as pretty much every other social media channel, make sure to go follow him. He's going to be talking about how to humanize your video-led marketing. He does a ton of video, really, really good at it. He spends way too much time probably editing on top of that. But yeah, Tim, the floor is yours. I know you've got some slides and stuff, so we'll make this interactive. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll kind of try to go through those as Tim's talking.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks everyone for coming. It's very exciting to meet all of you. Yeah, as Nick mentioned, tight-knit group right here. Any questions? I love questions. I think those are the best way to kind of get, some value. Screen sharing. Next screen sharing possibilities.
Good, good point. There we go. All right, try again.
Yep, we're good. Quick fun note here. This is my first time really diving into how to use AI tools. And I use this it's called Gamma, I think, for presentations. Pretty impressive. I sent Nick the first presentation for took him 3 minutes. Obviously did a lot to it since then, but it's pretty impressive. Yeah, so talking about humanizing your brand with video-led marketing. Just kind of give you a quick background, because I think it will help for some context on me. I am the senior director of marketing at Directive, which is a performance marketing agency. And then on my side gig, side hustle, I create a lot of B2B marketing sales content, mostly videos for LinkedIn, but other channels as well. But I would say LinkedIn's the biggest one. The quick scan me is my LinkedIn profile if you wanted to kind of dive into more about the videos I'm going to talk about and things like that. But the marketing part at Directive is actually important because I'm internal marketing. So I'm trying to bring in new business. And because we're a services company, we're a marketing agency, we spend about $3 million a year on advertising. And most of that is geared towards an R&D function, because if we don't innovate for clients, we lose. And the best way to do that is to innovate our own marketing to bring in new clients so we can kind of keep that innovation going. So I'm able to test things that maybe other companies can't, because we want to see what works and what doesn't. So I've been able to do that a lot with video, even just taking videos, using it for the advertising side, how it plays into landing pages, things like that. So we'll dive into that as well a little bit in here. Yeah, and just kind of give you an idea. We'll talk about a little bit what video-led marketing is, why you need to use it, how to get started. Starting is really the most important thing. It's actually going to be one of the simplest things you've ever heard of. Integrating it into your marketing strategy. So once you start getting those foundations going, and then kind of taking things to the next level, just some insights, tips I've learned over the last couple of years from the advertising side, like I mentioned, Directive, but also just personally on the platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok, things like that. So video-led marketing, in its simplest form, it's how do you humanize your brand to stand out? We've all seen those MarTech PDFs where it's oh, there's 11,000 companies now. It's so wildly different. Those aren't perfect, but there is a lot more competition in everyone's day-to-day for attention, for your company, just trying to stand out. And we've seen the emergence of TikTok and YouTube and all these other platforms where it's less produced videos, and it's just more human interaction, talking to a screen. And those things are helping to stick out, especially in the B2B world, because a lot of it's just kind of IBM, Microsoft, those stale kind of marketing. And video-led marketing helps you humanize your brand so you can stick out, because people buy from people. This in the simplest form. I mean, we probably all know these kind of numbers, but if you think about just why video is so important, which is very crazy to me because a lot of B2B companies are not doing it. The second biggest search engine ever, YouTube, is a video platform. TikTok, the emergence of that in the last few years, video platform. Instagram, Meta stealing the TikTok style, YouTube shorts stealing that, videos. Like this is like the future, and it's one of the best. Well, it's not even the future; it's the present, and it's one of the best ways to kind of stick out, no matter what. I kind of already alluded to some of these, but why you should do it. I think the best one is because people buy from people. I think it's very interesting, even just personally, when I do talk to people, they say they already know me because of my videos. I find that very intriguing and just kind of like one of those like mind-blowing things. Like, wow, it's such, you can just kind of dive right into a conversation and just have a great time with this person. It's a very interesting concept because people just know you from your videos. It's very, very interesting. The other part is just you get a lot more content out of it. I don't like, if you think about like blog posts, text, if you start with that, that's pretty much the stop, right? You can cut it into shorter things, but video now with AI, and I'm actually testing this right now for our company. You can take those videos, transcribe it, and then just do some quick editing, and you get more video, you get more content out of that, and you get blog posts, and you can cut up video. There's like the pillar piece kind of concept. Video, if you start with that, you just get a lot more content than you do if you start writing and anything like that. And there's also just no better way to tell your story than with video. This one's a weird one, but I think the personal growth side is interesting because I think of it as watching film as an athlete. You're watching yourself, you're seeing what you're doing wrong so you can fix it, or you're seeing what you're doing well and you can do more of it. Even just personally, I'm finding a lot of growth out of being able to watch myself, even though I cringed at it at first, being able to watch myself, my mannerisms, how I talk, the ums, I still do a lot of ums and likes, but all those things that I would say, I can catch myself doing it. And you kind of, it's another one I always say, you start to learn how to talk better, tell your story better. I think it's it's more personally, but I think a lot of people will see that as well, as you just kind of videotape yourself. I already kind of mentioned, but the distribution and shareability, videos just get shared way more than any other content, and then the creative unlock. So as again, a personal note, I was on LinkedIn, 2.5 years ago, and I was doing mostly text posts, and I just came to a halt after like 6 months, because I was just running out of ideas. And so when I was able to introduce video, it just unlocked so much more storytelling and being able to tell a different story, or not story, being able to be creative in a different way, and just get a lot more out of my content and actually produce more, even though it does take more time. I will say that. So I want to make this as simple as possible on how to get started, because I do talk to a lot of people that are just not creating videos, and that's because they don't know how to get started. They don't have the ideas. They don't. This kind of go. So the question was, why do you think B2B companies don't use video enough? What's stopping them? So so this kind of ties into it. I would say one of the things is a lot of companies think you need this huge production value. You need this $100,000 budget. You need this goes against what I'm saying, because we do video at our agency, but you don't need a fucking video agency to do this stuff. Your phones are like the craziest thing I've ever seen. The things you can do on your phones are crazy for video. I have a fancy camera. I only use my phone because it's just better, in my opinion. It's easier, in my opinion, as well. People don't know how to, they don't have the ideas they want to talk to. It's just easier for them to write blog posts. A lot of people are scared on camera. I think we should be clear on that. There is a lot of people like that, myself included. But if you just start and you understand that the first 15 are going to be bad, they're going to be really bad, you'll get better. Like anything, literally everything, you'll get better. But a lot of people just don't know how to start. And if you simplify it, I think it'll help. So starting with the idea, I use Apple Notes, and I put tons of ideas in there. We'll talk about how to like get ideas, but it all starts with the idea. What are you going to answer? What are you going to tell the story about? What are you going to talk about? And then just start filming. Honestly, it's the easiest thing ever, is just to start filming with your phone on your desk and just point at yourself and start talking. Or you can do different characters, or you can do different cuts, or certain like things with the angles that we'll talk about. But it just, there's no better way to get good at it other than just doing it 15 times, 16 times and putting it out there. It sounds very simple, because it is.
There was a question that came in, Tim, from Dylan. Why do you think B2B companies don't use video enough? What's stopping them?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of things we just talked about. Think they need the production value. Don't have someone that is comfortable on camera. So you think you need to hire someone, which is very expensive. It can be expensive. Or they just don't. I think there's also like, they don't have the time. You don't think they have the budget, even though maybe they don't have the budget for it. I mean, let's be very clear, at least in the marketing department, probably sales, every other department too. Everyone's got 50 different hats, especially now. So it's just, how do you spend that time to do the video? I won't lie, there's times I will edit a video for 5 hours. I hate it, but I can be a perfectionist sometimes. So that is a long time. So that is a very long time for someone to do something. And there's also a lot of times it takes 30 minutes, hour, all those things. My average is probably 2 to 3. But it does take time, but it doesn't need to. I am also, I want to be clear, I can be a perfectionist sometimes. It's all the classic answers: time, budget. It's just, they also don't think they need to do it. I would say the production value is the biggest one. I do talk to a lot of companies that think they need a huge production. It needs to be very, perfect. It needs to be tight. It needs to be like all these things. It doesn't need to be. Even Zoom, like not Zoom, Loom, or whatever, screen sharing, that's like one of the best ways to show off your product these days. And it takes like 5 minutes. So the ideation. I'm going to speak from my point of view and what I've seen some other companies do, where you can really find a lot of content is in these like Slack communities, Facebook communities, Club PF, quick plug for Nick. People are asking questions in there. If it's like, if you're marketing to marketers, an Exit 5, a Club PF, or what are those other ones? There's Pavilion. Those are marketers, salespeople asking questions in real time of problems they have. Those are questions you can answer in your content, in your videos. And it's never ending. So you can just answer those questions, take those statements and just start talking about them in your point of view. The influencer, same concept. Like if you're following someone that has a big following, they're not going to answer all their comments. Go into those comment sections, tons of questions, statements, things that are against the grain that you can talk about in video form, tell a story, your point of view. It's very, there's just so much. If you just follow the right people, there's going to be so many questions in there. And talk to sales. They get questions every day. They're going to have the same questions. You're going to start catching up on those trends, answer those, and they'll be happier for it. But also you can, if you start hearing your ICP just talk about ask the same questions over and over again, it's a good idea to create content on why, here's your point of view on it. Here's the answer to it. It's always a good idea to do that. And then the other thing, and this kind of, I don't know if anyone's ever read the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, but it's about basically stealing content, because there's really, if you think about content, there's not a lot of new content. It's all repurposed, right? And just for an example, I do a lot of videos that are like skits or the fruit, like even Nick mentioned the fruit cutting. That came from me watching a TikTok person tell a story. He was telling stories as he cooked. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do something similar. It's really just a repurposed idea, but with fruit cutting and talking about B2B. It's all just the same thing. It's just a different way to do it. There's so many ways you can look at things like that and just repurpose it to your style. In B2B, go look at B2C, and you can just steal everything and just do it towards B2B. It's as simple as that. I will hate to admit it, but I scroll on TikTok a little bit longer than I should. And the way I can justify it in my mind is I am getting ideas. And that does happen. There's a lot of days it doesn't, but it does happen where I get ideas on things I can talk about or do in a video format. Like I mentioned, just start filming. I think that's the most important part because it just doesn't get easier unless you just start filming. Just take your phone and talk about whatever that content is. Do it like 5 times. They're all going to suck. And then, but you can edit it so it looks better. But just start talking about the thing that you want to talk about, the idea. It all starts with this, create a script or an outline. So for me, I mentioned Apple Notes. There's 2 ways I do it. If I do a skit where I have like 2 characters, I'll do just like, here's the topic and then bullet points on like what they're going to talk about. I don't like to write it all out because it just sounds like I read it. I think that people get in trouble with that. But you have to kind of understand how you talk about things. And then if say I'm doing like the fruit cutting, talking about a certain topic, again, it's more bullet points, but it's just topic ideas. And so I can riff on them. Just to give you kind of an idea of how I do that, when I do talk about something, I find this helpful for me. While I'm editing, I'll make notes on things I'll come back to and talk about more. Like sometimes I'll leave half the fruit so I can come back and cut it up again so I can talk about it more or talk about it differently. Just because that just ends up to be my creative process. And then editing, I find it very interesting. The free tools are so great. I use CapCut personally, but you can use it on your phone, on your computer. It's very simple way to edit. I also know people use Descript, Veed.io, Clipchamp, and Capwing. But those are ones I would definitely check out. I don't think they're all completely free, but I think some of them are like $10 a month. Nick, what do you use? I forget.
So I was using CapCut for a while, but I am using now an AI like clip generator called Momento. It's actually really good. I've tried a bunch of them, and Momento is by far the best that I've played around with.
AI, you say? What do you mean?
Yeah, so literally all you do is you can drop an RSS feed of your podcast or your YouTube link or directly upload, and you can then it will automatically create between 15 and 30 shorts for you. And then it actually creates longer clips if you want. And then it's 1-click post to social.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, check. They're not super well known. I ended up randomly getting a DM from the founder, and he was like, "You should play around with it," and I did. And I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but it's actually really cool. Yeah. So I've tried Opus Clips. Momento is way better than Opus Clips.
Oh wow, way better.
Yeah, and I've tried. There's another one too. I forget the name of it, but the amount, like if you go check any of like my like Instagram stuff or TikTok stuff, I use Momento to create those clips.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. I'll check those out too. I'm gonna check them out. I should go back here when I said edit and send it. There's no better way to get feedback than just going. So like there's 2 dynamics, right? There's like your personal side of it, and then there's the business side of it. There is times where there's a concept or an idea I want to talk about, or like the fruit cutting, for example. I wouldn't start with my company posting like we do it now. We use that in our ads. We use that in, our social and all that for directive. But I didn't start off by doing that. I wanted to build out the concept, see what the feedback was first on my personal side. And then I was able to use it on directive. And I've done it a bunch of times with other things as well. But it always just gives you kind of like that feedback just to see like, oh, we can go this way. And that way you don't really get in trouble because it's just your personal side of it. And no one really remembers on the personal side. And this is where I mentioned earlier, where we do use a lot of these videos in advertising, and like just on emails and things like that. And these are also just some stats from other people I've seen, other companies, and just like why to use it. And they all make sense, right? So email, we all get emails tons all the time. People say they increase click-through rates and response rates. That's great. But think about how much of it we think is just kind of spam. It's just, spray and pray. But if you put in like a video in that email, and maybe it's 15 seconds, maybe it's a minute long, there's no better way for them to actually connect with, who's actually sending it than a video that's of someone talking, because it brings it back to like, the people first part of it. The people, like, that's the most important part, is like you're humanizing your brand. Email is just tons of text. I don't see why not to use video in email. I just don't see why it would hurt. Same thing with websites and landing pages. You see increased conversion rates on landing pages, just from like Google Ads, third-party directories, things like that, where we've tested it, or even just on services pages or product pages. Video always, typically, not always, but typically increases the conversion rates, the response, all those not responses, time on page and things like that, because there's no better way to tell a story than with video. And then just kind of, I did already mention this, but there's no better way to distribute across pretty much every platform than with video. You can't distribute text on every single platform.
Tim,
Yes.
this is great information. Thank you. So I came from the sales side. I worked with a pretty large Fortune 500 before going to a startup and then becoming a solopreneur. I can never say that word. But anyway, I'm just getting off the ground. And to the question that was asked before about why does B2B not use it? I was one of the early adopters in this very large company. My team started using Vidyard, and we used it for part of our multi-touch marketing. And it was great to see people actually were opening more of that than they were the traditional emails. And then even with regard to like selling in between events, like you got deals that are stalled, what have you, sending out a video message, more people opened that, responded to it, and re-engaged when using video. So this is some really great reminders as I'm getting off the ground to use the video, because it definitely does work. But to your point, knowing what to say and having to do it over and over again, just takes experience, I guess, right? So I've got to start doing a bunch of that myself, and it'll be interesting to watch them again and again and again. But I like what you said regarding using Apple Notes. I use Apple Notes as well, but I never thought to use it to write a script. But definitely gonna do that, so I'm not just babbling, on the video.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, my Apple Notes is it's crazy, but I mean, you guys probably can't see this, but it's like my hub. You can't see anything, but I have like emojis everywhere, just like notes everywhere, because it has everything. It's always obviously with me, so I can write all my ideas that come out of nowhere, good, bad, ugly. I got some that are like years old that I'm like, oh, I'll hold on to them because I'll come back, and I never do. But sometimes maybe I will. It's my favorite thing.
The other thing about the B2B side of it is that what we found when it was first rolled out is a lot of people were afraid that it was very big brother, especially if you're, working in a company where you have a lot of people on the team, if it's being watched or recorded and who's looking at it. And, do I look foolish out there? So I think it's really just a matter of getting comfortable with it. And most people are more comfortable writing because this is all kind of still very new. But I'm excited that you're here today to talk about this because it's the next wave.
No, I think it's a great point too, because so many, and trust me, I was the same way before I started, creating 15 that were just really bad. It's hard to put yourself out there. It just is. Especially if you've never if you, for me, even like speaking for the first time, I almost puked like really hard. Like I would almost I was pretty close to like bailing on the whole thing. It's just like that. It's just like speaking. It's just like these type of things. They're very scary at first. But once you put yourself out there, and you get like, it doesn't even have to be like good feedback. It can be just, friends feedback. That's really all you need sometimes to keep going. But to your point, not a lot of people are doing it. That's why I would say it's the biggest opportunity ever, because there's no better way to stick out if everyone else is still writing. And everyone's going to keep writing because of AI now. So it's even better. Because yeah, the AI, there's video AI. I've seen those, moving lip stuff. They're crap. Maybe they'll be good. I'll be pumped for that. My character's gonna be great, but that's, there's just not, people are going to continue to write right now. So it's just a huge opportunity. Again, I mentioned it, but it's actually exactly the same point we were just talking about. It's just like how it humanizes the brand, especially with emails, especially with even LinkedIn DMs. Like I will use Loom a lot now because it does save me time rather than just writing out a comment or writing out DM. But it's funny how because it humanizes you, it'll give me better. So an example, there was someone I didn't respond to for like 5 weeks, and I am so mad at myself for not doing that. But I sent him a Loom video, and it was just like, and I was actually kind of worried about responding because I just, kind of bailed on him, unfortunately. But I sent him a Loom video, and it was just like, oh, it's just because it humanizes you, you can kind of like, connect with the person in a better way. I just wanted to mention some things that I've kind of learned over time on like the important parts of video that I've found just from my videos. The first few seconds, everyone's probably heard this, but the first few seconds are very critical, especially if you're doing like on a TikTok or Instagram Reels or something like that. Those first few seconds to grab someone's attention are critical. So sometimes it'll be like, so for like fruit cutting, I'll like cut it, like make a loud noise with the cut. And that I've tested that versus just kind of going into it, and that those always do better because it catches the viewer first, because there's something that kind of sticks out. Or if like you're going to introduce like something kind of crazy, like just kind of like throw something at the camera, that can work too. That said, doesn't always have to do that, but I have found those to help increase amount of people just kind of getting past that few seconds. Especially on, and I also say the copy matters. I've tested, especially on LinkedIn, the video with like longer, like in-depth copy on the, versus not. And the copy helps it because one, not everyone's going to watch the video. Some people will watch it maybe half the time. I had someone the other day say, I've never watched a full video of yours. I'm like, great, cool. But they do read the copy. The copy does matter, and it'll help you with your kind of social posts, especially, on the corporate side, like just for your company. That kind of stuff does help because it can also just give you more context to the video. And then something I find it hard because it is more video editing that you need to do. But if you watch all the big YouTubers, if you watch like all the people that have like really great retention rate on videos, they add cuts like every 2 seconds. And that cut could be as simple as, if you see me right here, it's just like moving in the screen a little bit, like, well, that's a bad example, but moving in for like, just like a jump cut, or it can be moving to a different scene or like having different characters. Those things matter because it does increase kind of the retention of the viewer, so they don't get kind of bored and just move on. Something else I've found, it kind of goes, there's kind of both sides of it. The more you just kind of cut out the fluff, like be very critical on your videos. If there's something that doesn't really help with the story, just cut it out. You don't need it. Try to be as, concise as possible. The caveat here is I have found it to be interesting to keep in things that kind of show off your personality, because it is, the people part. There is, people want to connect with you. I have found that, adding in things that kind of show off maybe your facial expression, or just something that can add like a little differentiation to it, can help with the video as well. Just because people will understand, like kind of connect with you a little bit more. Subtitles and captions, those can help, keep the viewer engaged, similar to kind of what I was talking about with the cuts. And then there's other people that have talked about this a lot more, but keeping in the mistakes, the ums, the bloopers, just even if you mess up a little bit, again, you can connect with people better. I think there's an important part to it, not too many, obviously, but I think there is something to it, to keep in those ums, bloopers, things that humanize you, essentially. And then I do want to just send out or give out some examples. Sorry, I got a couple questions here. Question here, how do you do cuts and subtitles? Any apps or the ones we just, yeah. So I think most of the apps that we talked about earlier do it. I know CapCut 100% does. What was it? But I believe most should do it. I do know Descript does it. V.io, I'm not sure exactly about Clipchamp and Capwing, but I believe they do. I know CapCut 100% does. That's what I use for it. And the cuts, I think all of them would do the cuts because, we could just do this real quick. I can just show you real quick. So this is actually CapCut. Oh, wait, can you see CapCut?
No.
Okay,
No.
never mind. Oh yeah, all right, here we go. Now can you see it? Okay.
It's Tim Ross.
Yeah, something like that. So here's an example of like a jump cut. So this is the video, right? Basically what I can do here is if I'm editing it, I can split it. And so what you can do is, what I mean by a jump cut is taking this and just increasing or magnifying it a little bit. And so as you can see here, it jumps out. See, it's like a jump cut. Those are what I meant by like a jump cut. And you can easily do that in most of these because you're just basically cutting it up and then like maximizing the video part for like zooming. Yeah, that's probably the best way to say it.
I'm a big fan of Descript. We use that for all of our podcast editing, but then like we also use that for any of our like marketing videos that we're making, or if we're shooting like a gear review for like a podcast mic or something, we'll do that all in Descript. And they've added a lot of cool features with like this massive asset library that's completely free to use. Free to use with their pro plan. So
yeah, I've heard of good things. Nick, didn't you use Descript for a little bit?
Yeah, I was using it. It's the guys who do my podcast, they use Descript for all of their stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard good things about Descript too. For me, it's one of those things where I started off with CapCut, so now I'm just like so used to it. I like hearing about new ones, and I'm like, oh, I want to try it. I'm just like so used to CapCut. I just gotta get out of my head on there. Another question here: what if the B2B company was to be conservative about the videos? They want high retention and engagement, but nothing that jumps out at people or is too be particular, like personality. I know it's a contradiction, but that I find is often the situation. What subtle video openers, hooks could we use? So like throwing something at a camera is a little too much for them, I would assume.
Yeah, what I've kind of encountered a lot is that they want more leads. They know that they have to do video, especially on LinkedIn. Then they say, well, the video has to be good. And that means I want to see engagement and everything. And then you say, well, okay, this is how you do it. You've got to have a little bit of something sparky there. So, oh, that's too sparky. That's too risky. Our clients will run away if we do that. And it's like, how do you, because ultimately, yes, we want to be up with like Cognizant, Gong, Hockey Stack, those kinds of things. That's what really works. We can see that, but most are not ready. They're just trying to get from here to, they just need to be convinced to go to like there. So what could that be that, because so I work with an SEO agency. We have big agencies as clients, and kind of just want to do something professional and corporate, but also that stands out. And I don't know, so what was I subtle hook? Could it be? It could be maybe, I don't know, an algorithm or an equation appearing on the screen. I don't know what it is,
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. My examples might be a little extreme. You don't need a big cut or like just throwing something to the camera. But oftentimes it could be as simple as starting with the punchline, right? So like maybe the video is about something, but if you start with the punchline, what the actual video, that one sentence, that one thing that you'd want them to get away with, get out of it. Starting with that is usually helpful, right? So they understand what you're gonna be talking about. Even if in that way, even if they don't stay for the rest of the video, they got the one sentence out of it, that one thing that you really wanted to portray. You could also do it in a way where it leaves some mystery, right? So like that punchline could intrigue them a little bit, but you don't give them the whole thing. So it gives them a little mystery, so they want to continue to watch. So it could be something like, so for that example, I would say, maybe something that leads them to like a little mystery, so they want to keep going, or like the punchline. So that way, and truthfully, the punchline is the best part, because that way they don't have to watch it, and you can still get your point across the whole way.
That's definitely useful, because I'm going to be writing some scripts soon, and it's just something that I can hold in mind. Start with the punchline. That way, everyone gets the point, even if they don't go past the first 3 seconds, and you kind of got your thing done. And then if they do, then there's some mystery. You can build that into it. And exactly. I want to watch further. That makes sense. Yeah.
Perfect. Then here I just have a few examples of companies that I kind of admire or going to admire. ClickUp's one I admire just because they're out of the box. They have some don't get me wrong, they have some very high produced videos. They have it all in house, but they have some very interesting videos. I would just kind of look them up. There's one that I couldn't find the example for some reason, but there was an ad that someone was in like a Yeti suit, and they're like banging on an office. I just love that kind of stuff, banging on an office chair. But they do some very interesting skits, and even just like this one isn't highly produced. Might be. I'm Rob. But some stock video you can see like the cuts that I was talking about, all in one product, and just great shirt, and just like it's just talking about the brand very simply. It's so simple. And it's a little bit of high production at the end there, but you can have your stuff like that kind of sticks out. You don't really need a high production. They might have, but you really don't need that much production. Lavender is something that recently they just launched, Lavender Land. I would definitely check that out. They have some obviously great creators there, but it's definitely an interesting wave of B2B companies doing it like this, like a streaming service. Hockey Stack has one too, but check out their videos because they're very not high production. Some are, but most of them aren't, and they're very engaging.
Here's a question for you, Tim.
Yep.
Should B2B companies focus on creating a owned media component?
Ideally, I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of yes and no. The resource is always a problem here, I would say. So like, even if you think about Lavender, they have a pretty sizable team of content creators. in the sense of, I think they pretty much hired the whole marketing team off of being content creators. So it really does come down to a production aspect. Ideally, yeah, it's just, who do you have and can you do it? Right? Because not everyone has someone that's kind of charismatic or someone that is, can build like a big thing out of it, or build like a streaming service, because that is a big production. Truthfully, I don't have the like exact answer, because it kind of depends on, your resources. Ideally, yeah, it's just, but then again, I'm not doing that really. So I can't really give you I don't have like a big, or I haven't really put too much thought into like creating a streaming service, because there's not I don't have a lot of content creators around me either, like in my company. So it's just, it does come down to kind of resources there.
I was going to say, it's everything that I was trying to build at Earmeet before I got laid off, of like this whole creator studio where people kind of come together and you create a network of shows, not just podcasts, but like episodic types of content that are led by creators that get to collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
I may be bringing that idea back
Ooh,
for to come.
that was a great idea. Obviously, you kind of left the company and all that, so it didn't work out. But that was a great idea. It also depends on the company, right? I would say it might be harder if you're in cybersecurity, right? And there's probably ways to do that as well, just in a different realm. It kind of depends on who your audience is as well. But I do love the idea. It's just, I can't speak to it because I'm not doing it, which is a problem. And I mentioned here, Hockey Stack. Oddly enough, Todd is also at Lavender, who is in this video here, but I would definitely check that one out. Yes. So Lindsay says she's doing it now and it's a big lift. Lindsay, would you be able to, kind of expand on that? I would love to hear more about what that looks like.
Yeah, so we also are a customer of Audience Plus, which is what Lavender is built on. We are about a week away from soft launch, and then we're going to do a big launch. But we're utilities. We're building the Google Maps of the subsurface, so it doesn't get any unsexier than that. But we've seen a lot of success with memes. So like we have a meme channel. It's very engaging. People share it all over the place. It's hysterical. So like having the different channels, we chose to go in a different direction than Lavender. They're definitely very Lavender branded, whereas we're going more, our strategy is just we're everything utilities. So eventually it'll be everythingutilities.com, and people can just go and learn. So it's all edutainment. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff right now. So music videos being cut, commercials being cut, very lean staff. It's basically right now me, because my team's doing other stuff. So it's a big lift. But we also had a podcast. So it is a nice place to send people for educational purposes and entertainment, and not salesy stuff. Like you won't find product videos and things like that. But it's got to be digestible and snackable and short, which we're in the process of creating, hence the soft launch.
Well, it's for analytics.
Yeah.
You said it's launching next week?
Yeah, so it's launching at some point next week, just working through some proxy issues. And then it'll be everything, and then we'll have a link to it from the homepage. But it's only 3 channels right now, basically, blogs, memes, and podcast. But coming soon is a whole children's book series of case studies about customers, music videos that are all set to popular songs that have been rewritten about utilities, and a utility unicorn series that we're working on too.
Oh, I
It's a
love
big
it.
lift.
I'm sure. Yeah. I love it though. I'm going to check that out next week. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll share it in Club PF. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I think that's a good point too, because the Audience Plus, they just launched maybe a couple months ago. So it'll be interesting to see all the, there's 2 already. The flow, we got Forum Analytics coming out next week. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Actually, the flow is not on Audience Plus. I should mention that, but it's kind of similar concept.
Yeah, who did they build it on? I've been checking some of it out. Did they just do it like their own, or?
Obey did it himself.
Oh wow.
He is very talented. Well, they had some like developer help, but yeah, it was they did it themselves. Very, very, very talented. Big lift. I'll tell you that. But Club BF. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I know if there's any other questions, I'd love to dive into it.
Yeah, we got some more
You wanna go
time.
to
So
this
if you have
slide?
questions, I was going to say, if we have some more time. So if you have questions for Tim, now's the time. And Tim and I are going to be at B2B SMX together in a few weeks in Boston. So if you're a marketer, or I guess salesperson, because this is the sales one as well, check that out. I'm actually going to be speaking. I'm hosting a almost 3-hour workshop, which I didn't know when I signed up for it, around like marketing leadership and like how to ask the hard interview questions, because the tech world is crazy now. So yeah, feel free to ask Tim any questions.
I wanted to just ask or get Tim's take on what in my mind is like just one step down from like creating your own streaming platform, which I feel like has a lot of budgetary and time constraints. But like creating like some kind of Slack community, similar to like a Club PF kind of thing. But then just nurturing that with video content, with like podcast stuff. Like I know there's some people that have done it and done it well, but I just wanted to get your take.
Yeah. Who are you marketing to?
B2B marketers, specifically upper level marketers and CMOs.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So I'm sure we've all seen the surge in Slack communities. There's a lot of them. That said, there's probably like a few that stick out to me in the sense of they're very active still. And I've dove into this because Directive has one. And what happened to us is like we launched it, huge hype, but then it's like, who's going to manage it? Didn't hire like a full-time manager for it. And then like, well, we actually did do like society only, it's called Directive Society only kind of content. And we did like webinar series and things like that. But what happens is your team gets spread thin because you don't have a full-time manager on it. And so I think that's what happens with a lot of the Slack communities. They kind of die down because you don't have someone that's full-time doing it. There's a few that I've noticed. So there's like Pavilion, you have to pay for it, which is active because they do a bunch of stuff, but you pay for it. So it's like, I'm not even counting that.
Same with Peak.
Yeah, Peak is the same thing. Rev Genius is free. My thing with Rev Genius is there's a lot going on in there. There's just too much. I have it, but like I'm in it, but like I'm not. Like it's just too much.
Yeah, I'm technically in it.
yeah, exactly. I think I had to like update set up Slack, and I was like, I'm not gonna add that one.
Yeah.
One I would recommend kind of looking at as maybe a guideline is Metadata's one, because they have at least they did for a long time. They did. I think she's kind of spread thin now, but they had a full-time community manager. And so she was in there every day. Anyone asked a question, she would tag people that she thought could do it. She still does like Q&As with kind of thought leaders, or I remember one time there was like a wine kind of webinar. Like they sent you wine and then like you tasted it and there was like a bunch of people on there. That community I think is thriving because they have a full-time community manager. And I think video comes into that in the sense of like the Q&A she does, or the demand event. I think it's called like demand specific, like speakers or something like that. That's only in demand. they also sponsor events, and they'll do like a kickoff dinner the Sunday before an event. They've had a few of those. All comes down to resources though, and a person that actually manages it. So my thing would be, do you have someone that could be like almost full-time doing it for it to work?
Marketing team of one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say no.
That's the, unless you can find something very niche. Like I do know there's a cybersecurity marketing society, like group Slack community. It's very like I actually tried to get into it, and because I was in a cybersecurity company, they wouldn't let me in. So something like that I think could be interesting. It has to be very niche. I don't know what the community management is there, but I do see that one pretty active because it's very niche.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think with a lot of things, just niching down is so important.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think it comes down, like if you have a full-time, it's hard, these Slack communities, because you just don't have, when you have other things to do, and it's not like the top priority because you don't see like the direct kind of impacts from it.
Yeah, I have 2 clients that I'm about to be working with, like very well-known brands that want to build out their own communities for customers and prospects. And they don't want to hire a full-time resource yet. So I'm building out this strategy for them. And then in 2024, they'll end up hiring someone. They just want to get it off the ground to test it out, to see how it actually does before investing into a headcount.
I thought you were going to say you're going to be the manager for it. And I think there's probably a play there.
That's true. I've ran communities for a few companies that I've worked for, Clary and a few others. So
fractional community manager.
Yep.
There we go.
That's not bad. There might be something there. That might be a job. Get like 5 of them, and it's just like the same community. And you just kind of like boost everything in every community. Kind of play the game.
Exactly. Cool. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Tim?
I got one question. Are there any certain types of videos of yours that you've posted on LinkedIn that have led to more people reaching out to you more than other types? And so like, I'm not talking about engagement or reach or anything, but like where people reached out to you, becoming a lead or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so as a whole, oddly enough, I would say the kind of fruit cutting videos that Nick was talking about in the beginning has given me the most reach outs, not in terms of like business, but like because people now tell me like, I saw someone fruit cutting and I thought of you. Like there's like kind of that recognition with it. I've had, how did you hear about us? Like that's the most funny thing in my world to me is when someone says like fruit cutting videos. Amazing. But more specifically, like in terms of people reaching out, like asking questions about a certain topic that relates to business or like becoming a lead, it's when I get really specific. So if I ever talk about like one video I did was about creating ABM one-to-one ads, very specific, right? But I got a lot of questions off of that, and a lot of people DM me because it was so specific. And not a lot of people talk about it. So maybe a topic that's very niche and very just like not a lot of people talk about, or kind of goes against the grain. Another one I do talk about, and I get some hate for this sometimes, is like gift cards for demos. I've seen it work. And so when I do talk about that, I get a lot of people asking, both good and bad. I'll get some hate mail too, but you do get kind of DMs from that, and some people resonate with it.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So I know we're up at time. Tim, thank you for joining us. Again, if you're not following Tim, go follow him on LinkedIn, follow him on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. He's basically everywhere. Him and I are going to be hanging out in Costa Rica in a few short months, shooting content together. I'll be hosting a creators retreat November 1st through the 4th. There's one ticket left. If anyone wants to check it out, it's hiatusevent.com. Random plug there, but I know Tim was here and he's going to be there with me, plus a few other events. So Thank you for spending time. We'll make sure to put all these resources inside of Club PF. If you have any questions, reach out to Tim. He's a nice guy. He'll answer you. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.